So I'm back here with the Redmi 14. This is my second video, and in this particular video I'm going to check out gaming performance. Now I know that with the MX 250, a very low-end dedicated GPU with only 2 GB of RAM, that this is not going to be a gaming monster. This is not a gaming laptop. But can we game a little on this? The answer is yes. I'll show you various different titles ranging from demanding games to not so demanding ones, some light ones like League of Legends, and we'll see just how it performs with what settings. Mostly I'll be testing out 1080p because of course that's the native screen resolution we have. I'll also cover the thermals and the fan noise with a recap at the end of this review. Now I did mention in my first video, the first review, part 1, that I did try to increase the power limits here. Now I have increased them, but what I've noticed is that when you stress out the CPU, that it will revert back to the default power limit. So this setting's not taking whatsoever here, unfortunately. Same goes with throttle stop. So I have been running throttle stop. I've tried to undervolt, and the undervolting is just not taking whatsoever. So I'll just quickly show you this. Then any setting that I set here, it will save, but the offset you can see right here, all those zeros, it's not taking, and it's not showing it as being undervolted either. If it did work on throttle stop, then you would see in the grayed out area, you would still see an actual negative there on the voltage, but no. So that is not pulling through. So if you want to see benchmarks, check out my first video for Geekbench 4 at least, and Firestrike, that's there. Now I did run superposition, someone wanted to see this as well. So I mean, this is not a gaming laptop, okay? It does have a dedicated GPU, but it doesn't have a lot of RAM. It's not super powerful. It's quite low end, but as you'll see, you can play titles. So we've got 2291 here. In the settings, I have also forced the constant performance here to try and get the best out of that MX 250, and it is the 25 watt version. Now the latest NVIDIA driver I have here, I've been trying to install it. That's 430.86 at the time of this video, of course. And I just can't get it to work, okay? So I'm running a dated driver. So expect maybe a little bit more performance on the latest drivers once we can update. So first up is Resident Evil 2. Again, I did briefly show this in my first video, but I'll go into a little depth here with the settings I'm using. So you can see here for graphics, I've set it to DirectX 11 and relatively low settings right here, okay? Variable frame rate, of course, to see just how much we can get. And that's all low. So on the current area I'm in right now, I mean, the graphics do look good, but we're scraping 30 frames per second, even with that slight overclock. This isn't really ideal, so you probably want to go down to 720p and maybe even lower a few more settings just to get a more ideal, smoother experience here from Resident Evil 2. Witcher 3 now, so it's one of those titles, just like Resident Evil 2, that I believe you probably have to run here in 720p. Now in 1080p, on the lowest preset, I was scraping just 30 frames per second. And this is in the built-up town where the performance tends to be a little bit lower, I find, than being out of towns, of course, because there's a lot of NPCs and a lot of things going on here. So you can see a few starters down to 30 now, a lowest frame rate, 26 frames per second, but the average is about 47, 48. So I mean, it is playable here. So that's good to see at least. Now in older, lighter titles, so this is Counter-Strike Global Offensive, 1080p on the auto settings, which is basically everything on high here. Okay, so we can see here the frame rate is very decent, getting just about 100 frames per second here, about 86 on average. I expected a little bit more actually. But it is on high, so lower that down and of course you will increase your frame rate.
Hello.
So I can hear that we've got like 10-year-olds playing. That's normal though for Counter-Strike. Even people standing, I can't get headshots. Grand Theft Auto 5 now, and this is 1080p on relatively low settings. I set the population density onto the lowest. But the other settings actually, they're set onto normal, so I could even get it a little bit lower than this. But it's going to hover around, as you can see at the moment, about 45 frames per second or so average. Just over 40, dipping down a little bit now. But it's playable. And if you wanted a better frame rate, just like those other games there, of course, lower the resolution down to 720p. And now Fortnite, so I'll keep it on 1080p at the full 3D resolution on medium settings, and we'll see how it runs. So you can see here that we're getting on average close to about 50 frames per second, 1080p here with the low settings, as I showed you before. It's fine. So this is good. I think it's playable. But of course, like I've said with those other games I've tested, lower the resolution down a little bit. So maybe with this GPU, it's probably better off for most games to actually be running just 720p. This next game here is Shadow of Tomb Raider, and demanding, very demanding for this hardware. The GPU is basically maxed out here. The CPU isn't. It's only really running at about 10 watts there. Well, 70%, sometimes up to 100 as you can see. But we're scraping here only about 25 frames per second average. So really this game is just too demanding. Even on the low settings, 720p for this hardware. League of Legends, so this is an older title and a very light gaming engine, so as expected it performs well. We're hovering around 110 average frames per second here, moving around the map super quick. So you're not going to have any issues with old games and these lighter titles. So this title here is Wolfenstein II. 1080p on the low settings. It's a little bit laggy, a little bit choppy, but we're getting about 48 frames per second here at the moment. Average is around 40, so, you know, it's playable. Still looks good as well. So this is Dirt 3, 1080p on medium to high settings. You see it's running fine, looks really good. It is an older game, so this is where this particular GPU is fine with these older titles, as you can see. So this one here is War Thunder. This was a request to check out the performance, and you can see 60 frames per second. I'll just jump into the cockpit view here, because normally that's a little bit more demanding with your instruments and everything. And really this is not going to be a problem for this hardware. It's been so long since I have played this particular game. Okay, so taking a look at our thermals, they are very good. So this is the GPU now we're looking at. You can see maximum temperature, which I'll highlight here with the cursor, 65 degrees Celsius. Ambient room temperature right now is about 24 degrees in here, 25. So it's not too bad. It's not hot. It's not peak summer right yet, not in this room at least. And then our CPU got up to a maximum of, if we have a look at CPU package, so 84 degrees Celsius. So even though it just has that one thermal transfer heat pipe on there for the 15 watt processor and the 25 watt GPU, it's enough with that larger fan. And we'll take a look now at the surface temperatures. So our surface temperatures, they have been really good here. So 30 degrees, this is on the keyboard, just above the top here where I thought it might get hot. 29 over the other side, a little warm around here, so that's 37. So it's warm to the touch around this area. And then the palm rest, 31 degrees, touchpad, about 30, 29. So really all good here. Let's check the underside now. So the bottom of it, not bad as well. We're looking around 30 degrees on this side, so where the CPU is located there, that's 35. I think what is really helping is that large rubber foot that's on the rear. So it's got plenty of airflow coming through this. So really, it just is not getting really that warm at all. So the thermals, they're very good. Alright, so what about the fan noise? Now, I've been stressing it the whole time. So the fan has been on 100%. It's 50 decibels. I will give you a sample of it now.
Alright, so as expected, the gaming performance is not wonderful. If you're into your gaming, you're serious, then you wouldn't buy this because it's not a gaming laptop. You get something, well, I would say at least with a GTX 1050 Ti minimum to get much better frames per second. So I really struggled there with Tomb Raider. That's a very demanding game. Witcher 3 as well. So those games that are more demanding, I highly recommend 720p lower settings to try and get the maximum frame rate there. Fortnite was running fine, as you saw. A lot of the older titles, Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, League of Legends run perfect and fine and good on high settings. Now you kind of expect that War Thunder as well too was running just fine there. So yes, you can do a little bit of gaming to answer that question, that yes, it can game, but it's just not wonderful as you saw. But if you're buying this, you wouldn't be buying it for gaming to start with. You'd be buying it for the spec, what it offers, the good weight, as I covered in the first video of this particular model, so make sure you check that one out there. Now we'll have one more video, and that's going to cover the screen, so I'll go over the color space, so we'll have a look at the gamut, and that'll be the Adobe RGB, sRGB percentages there. Just how long does the battery last for as well? I'm going to do my full complete battery test, charging time as well, 4K video encoding, general performance, and then my overall opinion of the RedmiBook 14. So I do hope to catch you back with the third and final video of this particular model. Thank you so much for watching.